Hobby board gaming has been around for decades, but miniatures have recently taken the hobby by storm. Like it or not, they've changed the hobby. They've changed the way we look at games. They've increased a game's ability to immerse you in a new world. They've raised the bar in a lot of ways, but they've also become a target for many critics. So let's sit down for a few minutes and talk about minis. From Kingdom Death Monster to Gloomhaven, from Rising Sun to the Seventh Continent, from Lords of Hellas to Conan. What do all these games have in common? Well, if you've made it this far in the video, you obviously know by now. They all have minis. But something else they all have in common is an extremely immersive experience. Now, would these games have the same immersive experience if they only included tokens or standees? Maybe, but I doubt it. Now, obviously, Gloomhaven is a bit of an exception here because it uses minis for the characters, but standees for the monsters, so a little bit of both. And I have a feeling it would feel way more immersive if there were minis for all the monsters too, because there's just something about being able to see things three-dimensionally that allows your brain to feel as if it's more real. We see life in 3D, we see people and animals and structures in 3D. So how can we expect a bunch of two-dimensional art to draw us in the same way that a miniatures game played on beautifully sculpted terrain does? There's just no comparison. Having a game with a strong theme can also really benefit from having miniatures. Good games should be fun no matter the component quality. If I sit down with a homemade version of Descent, where everything is handwritten on notebook paper with horrible stick figure drawings, I know for a fact that I can still have fun, because it's a good game. But when you play Descent with all the correct components, it just really reinforces the theme and feeling of adventure. And something that can even further increase the immersion and theme is painting your miniatures. The closer a game can get to reality, the easier it is for that game to pull you in. Miniatures just really have this cool factor that you don't find in something two-dimensional. Now, I'll admit, I've backed games on Kickstarter just because of the cool minis that come with the game. I've thrown down a few $100s on something before ever reading a rulebook or even caring what the gameplay is like, just because, good lord, look at how cool these minis are. And that cool factor is one of the biggest ways minis have changed the hobby, and that's also why the hobby has grown so much in recent years. I have a friend who didn't care about board games at all, and he had no interest in any of the normal gateway games. But when I pulled out Zombicide, and he saw the huge number of miniatures that came in the game, it grabbed his attention, and he had a great time playing. See, there's just something about playing with a bunch of little plastic miniatures that brings out the kid in us. Some companies like to take the high quantity approach to their games. They like to shove as many miniatures as they can into the box, and some Kickstarters end up unlocking so many extra miniatures through stretch goals that you end up with an entire extra box of miniatures. I think this is a great approach because you know you're getting your money's worth. And I mean, who isn't excited to play a game with a crap ton of awesome minis? Now on the flip side, you've got other companies that take the quality approach, where their main goal isn't to have a ton of minis, but instead to have the quality of their miniatures just be absolutely phenomenal. See, sometimes these games can take a long time to play because, well, nobody's paying attention to whose turn it is. Instead, they're just staring at all the beautiful minis. So with all these great benefits of including miniatures in a game, let's talk about some reasons you actually might not want them. Now, the biggest reason would be the most obvious: the price. See, miniatures are expensive to manufacture and therefore expensive for consumers to buy. When you browse Kickstarter and look for miniatures games, it's pretty rare to find one costing less than $60 US. Now, what's far more common is something in the price range of $80 to $120 US. For new gamers, those prices can seem absolutely ridiculous. There are also a lot of people who want to play these big, awesome miniatures games, but just don't have that kind of money to spend, at least not on a regular basis. An alternative for this is a cheaper version of a game that utilizes standees, tokens, or wooden pieces in replacement of miniatures. There have been quite a few Kickstarter games that have done this, where the affordable pledge level is considered the standard edition, and the one involving miniatures is the deluxe edition. Now, out of 15 games that I looked at, I found that the deluxe editions with miniatures sold over 14 times more copies on average than the standard editions. So there are definitely people looking for a cheaper version of the game, but the overwhelming majority want all the minis. It's hard not to be drawn in when you see how cool these miniatures are, and I'm not the only one with that opinion. If you look at all the tabletop Kickstarter games and rank them in order by number of backers, not by dollars earned, you'll see that out of the top 30 games of all time, 15 of them, exactly half, are games that include miniatures. 10 years ago, miniatures games were not nearly as common. They were around, but they definitely weren't included in half of the top games. Now, keep in mind, I'm just talking about Kickstarter, where miniatures do tend to be a bit more common than retail games, but those games wouldn't be selling if people didn't want them. And believe me, I want them, because I want all the minis. Now back to the cons of miniatures. Another big one is that they're time-consuming to manufacture. So when you back a big Kickstarter game packed full of miniatures, you can usually expect it to take a year before it actually makes it to your door. Sometimes it can take even longer. The other big negative is the amount of shelf space these games can take up. These games are often quite large, and not everyone has an unlimited amount of shelf space. I've talked about this in a previous video, but I can't expand my collection outside of my game closet, so shelf space for me is pretty valuable. That being said, I can always find room in my closet for another amazing miniatures game, because, like I said, I want all the minis. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and comment below telling us what your favorite minis games are. Also, what new Kickstarter minis games are you excited about? For me, it's Batman Gotham City Chronicles, and for Gabriel, it's Horizon Zero Dawn. Let us know below, and check us out on all our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.